Hello, in today's video I want to cover how to decode and kind of problem solve a worn and old Honda key. So a lot of times people are using the Gymkana for Hondas and they can't pull the code, they can't figure out how the cut is going to go. So let me go ahead and show you what tools we need and how to get it done from what I've seen that works the best. So hopefully at the end of this video you can use this with this new skill set to decode yourself instead of relying on others, which ultimately waste your time, because your time is very valuable. But now you can learn how to do it yourself and you can be more efficient and you can cut more keys, sell more keys, instead of kind of waiting for someone to give you that answer. So the tools we're going to need first is the Gymkana. Before you start anything, make sure it's calibrated. Do that at least once a week. If you notice the cut is incorrect or the decoding is incorrect, calibrate. Make sure your tracer is correct and bent is bad, straight is good. So make sure you have all that checked. Spend 15 minutes once a week to calibrate. That's all you need to do. Keep it clean and you're good. So let's go through the tools that we need to get started on this process. A digital caliper, you can find these at Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, whatever. This was like $8. It's nylon plastic, it's not like a fancy metal one. $8, you cannot complain. I usually just stick it right there on the back behind the Gymkana. Next, you're gonna need a brush. You're gonna need a metal brush for those nooks and crannies, for those Honda keys or any other high security inside cut keys. And then you're gonna need your dirty old Honda key. So let's just a key blank. Let's just say that this is a 2005 Honda Accord. It's really old and worn. I'll do some close-up shots. And the customer's like, hey, I need a new key. And if you cut it on the 303, it's gonna make a copy of that worn key. You can't cut on the silicone. Cut on the Gymkana, it might not pull correctly. So let's go ahead and check out what we need to do and kind of the tips and tricks on how to decode this. And if it pulls a bad code, we'll make a made-up code and kind of go through the steps on how to figure out what works and how to make it happen. So here's the customer's key. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I used the hand file to make this make-believe customer key where it's really worn. See, like the bevel, it's not ideal. And see all that gunk in there? So when you're using the Gymkana, that tracer is going to touch, and with that gunk on there, it's going to touch. Maybe it's not going to touch here where it's supposed to. It's going to touch here and stop because of all that debris. It's electrical current going through. If it touches here and says, yep, that's where it's going to go, it's going to change off the whole decoding process. I'm not going to put it in the machine like that. It's just gross. Before you get started, use your metal brush and you brush all that gunk off. Clean. This is a very expensive machine. Treat it that way. So now we brushed it off and it's clean. So now there's no debris, no gunk in there that's going to cause any sort of misread. Back vehicle, and it's going to be a Honda, and we said it's a Honda Accord. And now looking at the year range, let's see what we have. So if we look at, we have emergency, valet, master. What do? We don't want to do valet keys, because valet keys, it's going to change the tip. Really don't want to do that. We want to do master keys. So if we look at this and the customer says, hey, it's going to be a 2005. We look at here, we have a 2003 to 2012, and then an emergency 13 through 22. Fun fact, Honda keys, emergency or regular, are all the same key blade length, but you want to be in a good habit of finding the year range that you're looking for. Let's go ahead and hit next, and let's decode. So we're going to put it at U0. Going to slide it into U0, the right depth. Again, it's at U0. It's good and correct. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's hit next. decode and kind of let it do its thing. So as you see, you have to make sure that your Gymkana is properly calibrated, all 3 steps. Otherwise, everything's going to be off. All the numbers are going to be skewed, and it's going to be more pain for you to figure out and fix it, because you're not spending 15 minutes once a week to decode, 15 minutes a week to calibrate. So touch is the front tip, cool, making sure it's in the right depth orientation. Now it's going to touch the side. So see where all that gunk would be? That could throw it off, and I see that a lot where dirty keys cause misreads. And it's going to go to the other side. Also for a Honda, it's pretty simple to put those in. There's no tricks when it goes to insertion for the Gymkana, like a Toyota key if you saw my other video. So now let's check this out. We just finished decoding the worn key on this one, and the correct key on here. The same key cuts, just this one was abused and worn down with that file to make it a old key. So now let's go ahead and check this out. So looking at, zoom out a smidge. So looking at the key, we're gonna see that it's flat where that section is. Okay, that's correct. It dips down a little where that 2 is. Okay, and then try to get that light. Okay, it looks flat and flat like where those 1s are. That looks correct. And it dips down a lot where those 5s are. Okay, and again for a Honda you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 depth cuts. Okay, so we're just going to safely assume that if it looks correct here, that's a really good outline. So it's 1s and then dips down a little 2, and then 1, 1, and then down a lot where those 5s are, and then up over a 1. We can safely assume that if it detected all that, this is going to be correct. Again, it's nice and clean. If there's that gunk in there, it probably could have said 4-4 or something else. Now let's look on the bottom. So again, it's flat, goes up where that 4 is, okay. Goes down where that 2 is, okay. And it goes up a little more. This goes higher up here than over here, so that would be a 5. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Then it goes down a little, and then it goes up a lot where that 5 is, and then down where that 2 is. Now I know for just experience that Honda keys are always a 1 and a 1 for those master keys. How it shows a 2, that's just because it's worn and old. Now if I look at
that key, the correct key,
oh, it's a 1-1. So I know for a fact that the correct key in the Gymkana, the other one, is perfect, and that's the perfect cut code. Just because it's a factory cut from a Gymkana, and I'm just scanning it again. So that's what it should be. It's 1-1 on the end. But on this one, it's damaged just because it's old and worn. So if I cut this on the Gymkana, or if I even cut it on the 303, that would cause huge issues. It just wouldn't work. Let me try to get you in focus. So if I cut this on the 303, I would have problems. I wouldn't know because everything else looks good, but I notice how this is going to be a bigger gap here versus here. So same thing on here. I really damaged it pretty good. Technically this might not even work in the vehicle's ignition if this was like a real key, but it's a good way to see. So now let's go ahead and figure out how this works. So if we look at the depth here and here, like for me in my eye, I could figure that out and like, oh, well, there's something wrong. And if you look here, pretty uniform, but we see that problem. So let's kind of decode this and see what we can figure out. So for reference, this is the nice shiny key, what it's supposed to look like, and this is the beat up, worn, old key. See how it has the different angles? It's just beat up and old. I use the hand file. So let's kind of go through how to use this. This is going to be a digital caliper. I keep it in millimeters. You can do that. These numbers don't coincide with the Gymkana. This is only to find the measurements here, so we can kind of use logic and deduce if it's going to be higher or lower, and what works, what doesn't work. So let's go ahead and look at that. So let's just say it's 9 millimeters. 9 millimeters for the width there. And there, 3 millimeters. Okay. Does it change at the end? 2.9. The change here. Basically the same, and that's fine. Now when we're looking at this key, say if it's like a 2003 to 2006 Honda, sometimes you'll see a step where it's dramatically shorter here, like by a millimeter or two. It's cut all along here. If you're cutting a brand new key, duplicate that. Around these edges here, because their old tumbler will get smashed when you put a brand new sharp key in there. There's hundreds of videos out there, and a lot of locksmiths know that a brand new sharp key from like the Gymkana or even the 303 or whatever will destroy that tumbler. I've had that happen with my guys before. So that's where, if you see their key, it's cut down, measure, 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 make it the same. You're duplicating. You're not making a new one, you're duplicating. So if that old key works, make another old key dimension. So now let's go ahead and look back at this. So if we're going to try to measure this section, so let's go ahead and look here. 6.7, 6.6. Okay, let's try to get a little more precise. 6.7. Cool. Now it's going to be difficult because I'm measuring here and here, these numbers. So what I want to do is I want to use this as a baseline and measure the top up here. So I'm going to not do that because that will kind of give me off crazy numbers. So I'm going to do is I'm going to measure like so. So if I measure here, that's an 8. If I measure here, that's an 8. Cool. So now I know that this point here and this point here are the same. So if I look at the Gymkana, how it pointed out, it's going to be, that would be a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1. Cool. So by default, this section should be a 2. Okay, that looks correct. Now here, I have no real baseline for that. Let's go ahead and measure and see. 6.3, 6.3, 6.5. So let's just say that. Okay, cool. Are there any other 5s that we see? So it says the Gymkana is a 5 here and here. Let's inverse that measurement. 6.5 and 6.5. Okay, so we just measured this depth here, that's 6.5, and here is 6.5, and that's correct. Okay, so we'd say that's a 5, that's a 5, that's a 5, that's a 5. Cool. Now for this top section. 7.8. Where did we see it? Almost. Okay, now it's 8.1. Did we see any ones over here? Okay, 8.1. So we know that's a 1 and that's a 1. Okay, cool. But now, with experience, you're going to see that this is really worn. And if you look closely, you'll see how there's debris on the bottom, and then on the top it's worn. So that's why it miscut or misdecoded, because the tracer didn't hit the bottom section, hit the top section. So let's kind of measure that. So if we inverse, well, that's really off. 7.3. Whoa. 7.4. So yeah, the Gymkana would say that's a 2. Well, that's where knowing Honda's is always a 1-1 at the tip. Here's the correct key. See how it is? So if I measure 7.9, 7.8, good, good. That's what we're looking for. So just using experience, I see that that's going to be wrong. And I would just physically type that in on the Gymkana, make it a 1, cool. So we know that's correct, that's correct, these are correct, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct. We can fix that. This is correct, that's correct. And this has a slight dip to it. So if we know that's a 5 and that's a 5, then that must be a 4, like how the Gymkana says. Yeah, I would agree with that. And do we see any other 4s? It says there's a 4 right here. So let's go ahead and measure. So 6.7 and 6.8. Yeah, we can safely assume that's a 4 and that's a 4. Cool. And now for this. It says on the Gymkana this was a 2. But again, it doesn't look like that. This looks much shallower than that. So let's go ahead and measure. 7.7. 7.3. So this is bigger and that's smaller. So I'm not sure. You'd think the Gymkana would say that would be like a 3 or something like that. Because this is going to be more close. Yeah, that's the 2 there. Yeah, you'd think it'd be almost like, are there any 3s? There's no 3s on here. So yeah, that would be the simple solution, is figure that out. Just by measuring everything else and knowing that's a 1. Now again, this is so damaged it probably wouldn't work in the ignition. So the vehicle wouldn't be at your location just because it's not drivable. But you'll never see like a key this crazy worn. You'll see it worn on the edges here, but not like that. So let's look at what we did for the Gymkana. So looking at this key, what we would do in this situation is we can use the back of our brush, and we want this to be a 1 and a 1. So we tap here and tap it to make it a 1. And that looks more correct. Yeah, that looks more correct. And that's how we cut it. See how it's very uniform at the end? It's a 1, 1. Yes. So let's just say before we wrap up, that we're trying to decode this and it recorded that and something like that. My first reaction would be check the key and make sure it's not full of dirt and gunk. If it's full of dirt and gunk like I showed you at the beginning, it would register that gunk as a part of the key. So you want to clean it. This is a lot of times when people have it, it's just dirty. You got to clean the key. But using the tools, we can go in and we can measure and find out the height and the depth for these other parts and figure it out. So we can easily go in and fix this. So hopefully this makes sense. And again, the goal of this is for you to understand how to decode, understand how to do this so you can be more efficient when it comes to cutting and programming keys. If you're spending 20 minutes in the van trying to figure out this cut code or waiting for someone to tell you how it is, how it works, or how the code should be, you're losing money. You know, if you can do this faster and faster, you can make more and more money. It's a win-win. So spend some time, do some research. You will make mistakes. If you learn from your mistakes, you're good. Write them down, what worked, what didn't work, and you can use that, not for yourself, but for yourself and others that you're working with, your employees. And in the long run, imagine a month from now, 2 months from now, you'll be really good at this and you'll make a lot of money. hopefully this helps, and we will chat later. Go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe, and share with someone that might need this to be helped. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.